سلمت لك أمري ولك في حكمتك مقصد.
I don't know which masjids and groups you have. I will give you general fiqh guidelines. The strongest position from a fiqh perspective, and Allah knows best, there's a lot of ikhtilaf, is that it is every community, which is for in your case, all of the UK for example, should theoretically unite together to look for the moon themselves at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. And they should not rely upon calculations, even though if they take calculations into account to negate a sighting, I don't have a problem with that. But they cannot rely upon calculations. That calculations tell us that the Hilal will come on this day, therefore Eid is this day. They announce it 5 years in advance. There's an organization in America, 5 years of Eid has already been announced. I say this is not correct. You have to see the moon. But if somebody sees the moon on the 28th of Shawwal, you cannot see the moon on the 28th of Shawwal, then you would reject the sighting. Similarly, if somebody sees the moon, and we know for a fact, modern science has told us that the Hilal does not form before a certain time, and he says he's seen it before that time, then I think there's no haraj, there's no problem in rejecting that sighting. That's my personal opinion. Okay? Problem arises, as I said, you have all of these different communities, all of these different masajid. Therefore, my advice to you, follow the majority of your community. Follow the largest masjid or the largest group of your community. If you have a number of masjid that have come together in your locality, and they are the majority, follow them. Just do it for the sake of some type of unity. And don't worry about end and beginning. Allah Azza wa Jal will not ask you about this fiqh. It's too detailed, too complex. Allah Azza wa Jal will not ask you. And He will look at the intention that you're trying to save the community. So if 1 or 2 masjids are separate and 5, 10 have come together, join with the community. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, Yadullahi ala al-jama'ah. Allah's hand is over the jama'ah, the group of Muslims. And whoever breaks away, he is the one who's breaking away. Try to find the majority of Muslims of your locality, of Wales, of Cardiff, or wherever you are, and then inshaAllah ta'ala, stick with them, and start the month with them, and end the month with them. And I think there is a Sharia Council of the UK, if I'm not mistaken, that announces the Eid, and as far as I know, and I don't know, as far as I know, they do represent some type of majority. As far as I know, I could be mistaken, but they have some type of weight on a national level. And so if this is followed, alhamdulillah, whatever the case is, brothers and sisters, don't argue and bicker about it. Because this is something that is haram. And the Eid dates is something that is mubah. It's something one might say this day and one might say that day. The differences of Eid and beginning of Ramadan are just like the differences of the 4 madhabs. Because this ikhtilaf goes back to the 4 madhabs. One madhab says this, another madhab says that. So let it be. Like we don't fight over where to place the hands, we don't punch and kick each other over, at least we shouldn't do so, I hope we don't do so. Okay, we don't do it. Similarly, in this issue as well, don't fight and argue and bicker. In all honesty, most of you have no understanding of these fiqh issues, right? You are not qualified. It's nothing, I'm not putting you down or anything, but just like I have no knowledge of being a doctor and of prescribing medicine, that's not my field. Similarly, most of you have not studied the fiqh. And it's very detailed, it's not that easy. I have spent years pondering over these issues. I've spent hours and hours reading and researching. And I tell you, as a student of knowledge, it's not clear-cut. It's not black and white. It's not just you snap your fingers and this is... No. That's why the scholars have differed. So let this difference amongst the ulama. Don't take it in your level. Let one group do this, another group do that. And when you meet them as Muslim brothers. Okay? As for you yourselves, my advice to you, follow the majority of Muslims of your community.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. The problem is this, that most of the time sighting is not possible in this country because weather is bad. And when there is a Eid in Cardiff, 12 miles away from Newport City, they are having the different day. So should they follow the majority where the Muslims live in Cardiff and the nearby villages where they should go to come to the Cardiff, or they should go to the Newport for the Eid?
Okay, you have to now categorize yourself. Am I a leader or a follower? And I'm not saying a joke, I'm being honest here. Am I a leader of the community? Meaning, am I somebody who needs to make the decision for hundreds of people underneath me? Am I in charge of the masjid? Am I an imam? Am I somebody that's in the committee that, we're going to make a statement that people will follow? Or am I somebody who's a nobody? Right? Am I just somebody who's going to follow another committee? If you are in a position of power that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you, I am the leader, I am the imam, I am the this and that, in this case, you had better do some research, ask around, okay, call up some people, ulama, students of knowledge, and understand a little bit, so that in the sight of Allah you can say, I did my best. And based upon that, you follow what the ulama and the imam tells you. If you are a lay person who's not in charge of the masjid, you just get 5 different fatwas for 5 different committees. Okay, every city has its own thing. In this case, I tell you to follow the largest masjid and Muslims of your community, your city. Follow them. If you're a lay person, follow the majority of Muslims of your locality. So if you're in Cardiff, follow the majority of people in Cardiff. If you're in another place, follow the majority. Because you're going to be on the safer side in the sight of Allah, that, oh Allah, I wanted to have some type of unity. And there's a beautiful hadith. Again, I don't want to get into the fiqh of Eid and citing, because wallahi, I can give hours on that, but it's not relevant. There's a beautiful hadith. Eid is the day you celebrate Eid. And Ramadan is the day you start Ramadan. This hadith is strange. What does this mean? Eid is the day you celebrate Eid, Ramadan is the day you start Ramadan. The meaning of this hadith, the scholars say, is that even if you made a mistake, and the moon was actually in the sky but nobody saw it, suppose nobody saw it, Allah Azza wa Jal will not call you to account. The Muslims celebrated Eid on the quote-unquote wrong day. That is the right day in the sight of Allah, because you tried your best. That's the point of the hadith. Eid is the day the community is doing Eid. This is the hadith of the Prophet. And Ramadan is the day the people start fasting. The people start fasting. Meaning, even if technically Ramadan was another day, if that was the day that, for example, in a Muslim country where there is unanimity, right? In most Muslim countries, not even all, most Muslim countries, whatever the government says, pretty much 99.9% of the people will follow it. Suppose the government made a mistake. Okay? Suppose they said something incorrect. Now, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait are next to each other. Kuwait sometimes has a different day than Saudi Arabia. How is it possible, you say? We don't ask and care. The people of Kuwait follow the Kuwaitis, and the people of Saudi Arabia follow Saudi Arabia. And Allah Azza wa Jal will reward all of them. Won't punish anybody. That's the point of the hadith. Eid is the day your community does Eid. So the problem comes in North America and Europe and minorities basically. There is no one clear-cut majority usually. That's the problem. Majority is like 60-40. It's not 99.99 versus 0.01. So I say follow the majority, whatever that majority is. And if you're not sure of the majority, then follow what you think is the majority of your community. And leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There are quite a few questions, and I am very conscious of the time because some sisters are from the very far distance. So would you be please a little bit shorter in your answer?
Do you have to pray? Okay. Do you have to pray Taraweeh to make your fast valid? No. Taraweeh is an optional salah. If you don't pray Taraweeh, it does not have anything to do with the validity of the fast. You are not even sinful. But make sure you pray Isha, right? The 5 prayers you need to pray. But Taraweeh, if you don't pray a single rak'ah of Taraweeh, you're not sinful. But the reward is also gone. Because the Prophet said, whoever makes qiyam, and that's Taraweeh, of all of Ramadan, he will have his sins forgiven. Sure enough?
I'm very conscious of the time.
Okay. Could you please talk a little bit about i'tikaf during Ramadan? I'tikaf is a sunnah, a regular sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He did it every year of his life. I'tikaf means to basically seclude. That's what i'tikaf means. To cut off from and seclude. To seclude yourself in the masjid. Which means that you give up the luxuries of your house. And you give up the luxuries of your spouse as well, intimacy. You give this up. And you seclude yourself for 10 days in the masjid. And in these 10 days, you basically do your Quran and dhikr and dua and worship, and you don't get involved in the affairs of this world. This is what i'tikaf is. The Prophet would do it regularly for the 10 days. If you can do it, alhamdulillah, excellent. If you cannot do it, even lesser than this. I'tikaf can be done for 5 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day it can be done. All of this is permissible. I'tikaf, it doesn't have to be for 10 days. And if you cannot do it at all, then there is no sin as well. This is one of the many ways of doing extra reward.